Hello, everyone. This is Olivier, your host on the series Life Lessons series. Today's guest is Natasha. She's a traveler. She's here to talk to us about her traveling experience and share with us some tips and some insights of the things she's learned so far. And specifically, she want to share with us how how we can travel on a budget. Okay, so let me see if I can bring Natasha on, and then we get going. Hello, everyone who's tuning in. Welcome.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Natasha. How are you?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
Okay, your camera looks like you're seeing like the tip of your head. Okay, it's getting better now.
I'm fixing it. There you go. All right. All
Okay,
right.
how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Uh, I'm happy to be here. And how are things on your end?
It's a pleasure. Pretty good. Today's my day off, so I was able to just catch up on some rest.
Oh, very
So
nice.
yeah, it feels good. And then yeah, so thank you for being my first guest on the Life Lessons series.
Okay.
So for those who are tuning in, yeah, I decided to start the Life Lesson series myself because I love learning. I'm very curious about different things. So I figured instead of just consuming content on YouTube or documentaries, why not have some guests who could come on the show and talk to us about different topics they are passionate about or topics they're very knowledgeable about. And today we have Natasha. She's a traveler. She's been to different places, so she's here to talk to us about her experience and then share her insights. If you guys have questions, you could type in the comments or you could put them in the question box. And then hopefully it's going to be a very interesting night. Yeah, so just to kick off things, why don't you just introduce yourself so people have an idea who's Natasha and how did you get in traveling?
All right. Great. So like you mentioned, my name is Natasha. I'm Rwandan. I'm currently based in Canada. I work as a public health communications professional, and I enjoy traveling. How I got into traveling, it was, I want to say, accidental in a way. I started traveling when I was younger. My parents moved around quite a bit. I lived in 4 countries by the time I was 14,
Oh, wow.
and so when I relocated to Canada, I actually really got into it when I was I enjoyed local traveling in high school. And then when I was in university in Winnipeg, I used to travel every summer. That's when I kind of got curious. I did one trip, then, I was curious about visiting another place. So it was
Mhm.
mostly towards the end of university and afterwards when I got into the workforce. So in the last
Okay.
decade, I've been doing it actively and I'd say consciously. It wasn't somebody bringing me to another country. It was just
Mhm.
me doing the research. So it became a passion of mine. It's mostly curiosity and the desire to experience new cultures and expand my network, and also just something new to do, a new
Mhm.
challenge. And now it's kind of like a bug. I feel like if I haven't traveled in a year, which is like odd, that every year I go somewhere.
Mhm.
Uh, and I thought COVID would, would stop that. But,
Yeah.
I had opportunities to travel during COVID. I'm not sure I should say that, but it was safe. I think it was safe. But
So, oh, you figured some tricks how to
yeah,
maybe we can learn that too
some hacks.
uh, from
Some
some
hacks.
hacks. Yeah. So I say it's more like so experience as a child growing up, like living in 4 different countries. Do you mind sharing which countries were those?
No, actually, I was born in Congo, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then when I was like 6, we moved to South Africa. I lived there for 5 years. Then I went to Rwanda for a couple of years. That's where my parents are from. And then when I was a teenager, we relocated to Canada. And the rest of my trips have been like on my own, really, and with friends. And well, there's some solo trips on my own, but not so much, relocation-based trips.
Okay. Yeah, so would you say it's more like because those are the trips you did as a child, or is it more like who you grew up to be as a person? Like what do you think like has influenced you to kind of like because personally I like to look back into the things I do and try to see, sometimes what they say nature versus nurture. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like are we born a traveler or just some external influences?
Yeah, well, there was definitely influence. I mean, I have a father who liked to move around, and that that was part of my formative years, and then that kind of it's kind of stayed with me,
Mhm.
and it's I think at the core it's that thing of wanting to experience something new, uh, which and or just expand and constantly wanting to learn. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. If we look back, that's the
Mhm.
driving force.
Okay. Because for me, I remember when I was a kid. Yeah. So I guess I was lucky. We moved to Kenya when I was 13, 13 or 13 when I was in Kenya. But I remember, like, even when I was small, like, I don't know if you guys did that. Like, on summer holidays, sometimes they send you, like, to go see an uncle or the grandma, when you go, like, up country. So for me, I remember, like, I used to be excited because I'm going somewhere I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time I was staying at my uncle's place. Like, I'd wake up and then just go for a walk. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I saw these trees, it smells different.
Mm.
So I don't know if you had that as growing up, like where you go like short trips. Like, were you excited like towards those, or just kind of like the bad picture
Uh,
when you're older?
Yeah, I mean, we were like one vivid memory that I have is when we lived in South Africa. We used to go on trips to the National Kruger Park. It's like a
Hmm.
huge reserve, and we just watch the animals. It was like a Sunday thing, a Sunday afternoon thing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to look forward to that. In terms of going to visit family and stuff, I mean, that's more something I did when I was older. It was more like the family members coming to visit us, you know.
Okay.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I had things to look forward to, like little trips or family trips here and there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's.
Okay, that's interesting. So just to kick off, just like, is there like a such a definition like a traveler? Because sometimes when you see different things online, there usually seems to be different categories. Let's say when you talk about eating, there seems to be like a way of eating, and then some categories. Like when it comes to traveling, like is there such a thing as some definitions or groups, categories, like or maybe related to different styles of traveling, like? And if there's such a thing, like do you classify yourself as a type of a traveler, or just educate
Uh,
us on the space a little bit?
yeah, I mean, I'll say on there's certainly different kinds of travelers. There are people who travel to experience things. There are people who travel, just strictly for work. And then there's within that umbrella, there's also luxury travelers. I personally identify as someone who travels on a budget. Uh,
Mhm.
and I mean, there's definitely subgroups of travelers, and depending on the purpose of your travels, I think.
Okay. So for all your trips you do now or you've done in the last 10 years, like like how do you go about it in terms of I'll say philosophically, like do you have like a goal you set, or maybe I want to go in this country to see this, or do you have like maybe like a deeper like personal thing you're trying to fulfill, like, or you just pick a country randomly, like how do you choose places to go to, like?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. I mean, in Africa, ultimately, I wanna visit every country in Africa someday. Right now,
Mhm.
I have 50 more to go. Well, 49, but
Mhm.
one I'd like to redo. But no, but on an annual basis, I tell myself, sometimes it starts with, for example, when I went to Cuba, it was a conversation at work with colleagues, and
Mhm.
then I was like, oh, I got curious. somebody said something interesting about Cuba, and it was also in the back of my mind. Then when we had that conversation, I went to do research, and then I told a couple friends about it, and then we started planning. So we have a budget. I looked at how much it would cost approximately. Then we started planning from there, airfare. In this case, it was all inclusive, so it was not that hard to plan. And then we picked a date, and then we started booking everything, and then we went. So it was easy. So there's always initially there's a goal, there's a purpose. It's either a conversation or something like I come across, if it's through my research, and then I plan from there. But I do have, ultimately, there are countries, I have a list of countries I'd like to visit eventually. And then I tell myself I try, one or two. But the last couple of years has been a bit different. But it all starts with planning, ultimately. It's not just like a random thing that happens. It's something, triggers it. It's a curiosity or a conversation. So far, that's been the trend.
The trend, okay. So when it comes, let's say, do you have like a timeline, before you can pull off a trip? Did you notice a trend, or do you have like a formula you follow? Like, it's like 3 months, 6 months, or do you pick a place 1 year in advance? Like, how's the process go for somebody who would like to be able to travel, let's say, every year, like you've been doing?
Yeah, for me, if it's an international trip, then at minimum 3 months. I start thinking about it 6 months in advance. Then I start, putting money aside. I usually have a savings account going. I'm saving throughout the year. And consciously, there's already, if a trip comes up, there's some money that would go towards it. And then, but really, ideally, and most of the time, I've booked tickets 3 months in advance. I've made all the reservations. So I'm not the kind of person that does last minute trips. It's not. I feel like unless you have an unlimited budget, last minute trips. There's also some deals, like last minute deals, but I'm not the type to bet on those.
You don't do like the way some people set like an emergency fund in case something emergency happens. Like, you don't have like an emergency travel fund. You don't do that, or?
Oh, well, I have an emergency fund, but not emergency travel. Like, I don't consider leisure travel an emergency. For me, an emergency.
Do you have like I don't know if what I meant was, like, do you have something like where you set money aside in case maybe you get like a crazy deal, and then you can just hop on it, or you just?
Yeah, I do have that kind of money, but I just don't have that habit of waiting till the last minute to do it. But right now, I'm an employee, so there's that aspect. You have to book time off.
Okay.
In my role, I have certain responsibilities. I can't just be like, I'm out, in a couple of days, I have to go. I found this deal. It's, yeah, but, and it's also, if I wanted to do that, I could, but it's just, I personally don't, rather not do.
Okay.
I can do spontaneous trip. I do them locally, or like a local flight. Like, if I just extend a long weekend, or take an extra day or two, those I do. And I do have some funds that I have dedicated to government.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, so for those who are joining us, today we have Natacha as our guest. This is the Life Lesson series that I'll be running. Going to have different guests who are going to come talk to us about different topics they're passionate about, or topics they're very experienced in. Today we're talking about traveling, and Natacha is here to share with us her wisdom and insights, and also share with us some how to travel on a budget. She classifies herself as a budget traveler. So that's where the conversation is happening. If you have questions, you could put in the comments or in.
Oh.
Throw me off.
You were saying if you have questions.
Yeah, if you have questions, please put in the comments or in the question box. Now, so let's give us some nuggets, like some really actionable nuggets. Let's say if somebody, or they say we can't hear, you can hear me or Natacha? Natacha,
I
can
think
you
it's
hear me?
when you. I can hear you. I think it's when you took that call, or you were about to take it. But I think.
Okay.
Yeah. If you still can't hear us, please put a note in the comments. But yes, I'll give you some nuggets. I'll just, I decided to give like 3 points just to keep it short, and so we
Okay.
can have engage. The first nuggets I would say, within budget traveling, you have to have a plan, have a purpose of your trip, and then create a budget. And some of the things to help you create a budget, I'm going to reference as a triple A. So you're looking at triple A. You're looking at your airfare. So you can think of it as general transportation, whether you're going to take a flight or take the train, take the bus, get a rental. So I'll just put it as airfare is the first A, and then there's accommodation. Where are you going to stay? Are you going to get a hotel, Airbnb? Do you have some friends or family that can host you? All that plays into your budget. And then there's activities. So wherever you're going, what are you actually going to do? Are you going to sit on somebody's couch, or do you want to go sightseeing? Are you a foodie? Do you want to go try out different restaurants? All these add up to dollars. So then when you've done your research in the AAA of all the AAAs, then you can have a sense of the budget you're going to work with. Or you can start with, I have, I don't know, $2,000, and figure and plan from there, if you already have your funds sorted out. And then some of the recommendations I can give in terms of traveling with budgets. So if you're going to in terms of accommodation, try to shop around. Don't just pick some random hotel somewhere. And one of the things that has helped me in the past is shared accommodation. You pick friends that are like-minded, that also have the same plan to travel as you, and then you share their accommodation, and that seems to cut down costs. What else? I was going to say something else in terms of booking flights. So if you're traveling by air or even by train and by bus, there's usually deals. Like if you plan ahead. I remember the train station here, the train system here, they used to have this deal where if you can come, two people, you buy a ticket for one, and then the second person pays like 50%, things like that. So use things like I personally use apps like Groupons for when it comes to activities. So you can get deals on activities. Sometimes they have deals on actually a whole bunch of things. You basically sign up. You can get notifications. Same thing for flights. I use an app called Hopper, Flight Hub. A friend told me about a recent one. Agoda, all these things, they have deals. Instead of paying full prices for things, when you shop around, you can get deals that way. So, essentially.
So you track deals like on different platforms, or is there like for instance, the one you mentioned, Flight Hub?
Yeah. Flight Hub is mostly just airfare, and Hopper is the same thing, airfare. Agoda, you can do airfare and hotels, and also rentals. So you can use one and book all three, instead of just going to some airlines and paying full rates. And sometimes the thing I've noticed with Agoda and Hopper, sometimes they show you different airlines. And sometimes they refer you to the actual, if the airline, booking directly to the airline is the same thing or cheaper, they'll refer you back to the airline. So it's pretty good. So depending on where you're going, check out some apps that will be useful for you. You can use those. You can start from there. And then there's Groupon, there's Aviator that I used. That one too has coupons for activities. Discounts. Try to maximize the discounts opportunities, and that will help you stretch your dollars.
Okay. Yeah, I saw somebody ask a question, but I'm not sure what it means. She says, "Do you use VRBO?" I don't know if that. Gracia, could you probably maybe tell us what that means?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, but in the meantime, there's another question that came out, because I guess at the early on where you talked about Africa, so she was asking, so you plan to visit all the countries, I'm assuming, in the continent of Africa?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay. So so why, for instance, Africa, you not do the whole continent, but let's say Europe, you don't want to do the whole continent? Is there like something behind about it, or do you mind sharing?
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, okay. I asked too many questions. So if I ask
no,
something that's too personal, just let me know and then we'll skip.
it's not too personal. It's just
But
not a.
I've known to ask too many questions.
No, no, it's good. It's good. It's a good question. It's and I think it's a valid question. I mean,
Yeah,
Africa interests me, and I'm of African descent. I feel like it's a priority and it's more of an interest. There's more countries to visit. There's lots more cultures to experience. Not to say that Europe doesn't have culture. I mean, I've been to a few countries there already, and I feel like Europe is not that big in terms of. Africa is more of a challenge to me to move around and to be able to visit
figure
all.
out your way.
Yeah, figure out my way, and I feel like I would. I don't want to say something off. Like I feel like I would get so much more of that experience. And Europe is not that far from me. I can go, I can go twice a year from where I am. Like
Yeah.
realistically, twice a year
Mhm.
different.
But
It's
also, I
not.
think Africa, you can get more experience, let's say, from one country to the next.
Yes,
That's the
exactly.
impression I have. That's the impression I have. Like, I haven't been to many African countries, but I have this impression that, like,
Yeah.
from one country to the next, you can discover like so much. Sometimes even the food itself, even if you don't consider all the historical, I feel like you could really. Actually, there's a good book. I have to remember the title. It's called Jim Rogers. Yeah, the book is called Street Smarts. You
Yeah.
should check it out. I'm sure you're gonna like it because we talked about some personal finance stuff. Because
Uh,
he's like an investor, like a billionaire, things like that. But he traveled across China. Also, he traveled across Africa. So, but then what I liked is the way he set up his investment fund. So he still makes money while he's traveling. So I think you'll find that. But one of the things I learned from the book, maybe you can tell us some of the insight. So he was, for instance, one of the book was saying that when he was like crossing the border because he was traveling by road, right? So whenever he was entering like a country, if there was a black market or not, like
yeah.
he could really tell you so much about the economy of the country, even before he goes in there, just on the border, just by seeing how people exchange money, if there's a black market. So like for you when you travel, like do you pick up like things like that, or do you have like a lens where you look through things? Like for him, for instance, in the book, he's looking also like in terms of the like lens of like economy and money. For instance, he says when he was traveling to China, even at that time was still considered communist, but he saw a lot of people like they would sit in front of a TV and watch the stock market as if it was a sport, right? So he felt there was something really happening. So before he left China that time, he opened an account and then he started investing in China, right? So for you, like when you travel, do you have like a specific lens where you look through things like historical, culture, or like?
Yeah, one of my goals when I travel is, especially when I'm going places where I've never been, and I like to experience the cultures like the locals, and get to try to see things through their lens. Because sometimes when I'll give you an example. When we travel, for instance, in the Caribbean, for instance, if you do resorts or like you go on a cruise, for instance, and those are organized things, and they'll tend to, when in a resort, it's kind of like in a bubble. I personally
Mhm.
like to leave the resort and go experience things to the locals. So then you do get a sense of like economy when you eat. For example, in my experience, when I went to like actually all the resorts, and even when I went to the islands last year, it's a whole different experience when you're with the locals. I mean,
Mhm.
you notice things like in terms of economy, you notice like the poverty level. You notice like sometimes the food even tastes better. I was talking to one of my siblings, and I was telling them about like how in Cuba when we were at the resort, it just felt like they were catering to certain people. But when we got out, the
Mhm.
food tasted. I felt like we ate at one of the local eateries, and the food was different, and the people were more warm. They weren't as like as guarded. And of course, you get, and we got to see a glimpse of the realities of Cuba, like not just the economy, but the way people live there.
People live, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely try to look at the lens through the lens of the locals. You learn a lot. And in order to see things through the lens of the locals, you have to try to live like the locals when you're there. Um, uh, that works well when you're on a budget, unless you're visiting, some expensive island.
Okay. Yeah.
But for instance, even when I go like back home, for instance, I don't you can see the different travelers. You can see the diaspora people who are just there for they're there for like maybe 2-3 weeks, so they're just
Okay.
there's that popping champagne thing, and you
Yeah.
know that their plan is different. They're just there to
Mhm.
enjoy themselves and then to the
Mhm.
maximum and then leave. Not that everybody does that, but there's a category of that. And there's a
Yeah.
category of people who are just living low key, going to the local eateries where the average Joe can afford, going to the market to shop, bargaining. So all those things allow you to give you the opportunity to experience
Yeah.
things.
So for you, a big thing, if I get it, just you really want to have the local experience. You really want to sense like being okay. Because something I noticed, at least in my personal life, like it wasn't intended, but it just kind of happened. Because I've been living like a nomad lifestyle. So in the last 7 years, I lived in different cities, but all within Canada. So then one day I realized, that's what I was asking, just different type of travelers. I don't know if I consider myself as a traveler, but then one day I realized, I'm like, oh, if I go and live in a city for 6 months or a year, like it's no longer enough to say I'm from there. But in the same time, I noticed like I experience the city differently. Let's say if somebody was to visit.
Yeah.
So so for me, then I was like, okay, maybe this is something I should consider maybe as a lifestyle for me as my type of traveling. Maybe go live somewhere for 6 months, a year, and then go live someone. Because I realize, I guess it's that local perspective. Because you pick up different things. Like you pick up different things. You like it's different. Like because I remember like last time I went to Africa, it's like many years ago now more than 10 years. So when I went to Burundi, and then I made a stop to Kenya. But when I came back, then I started questioning myself. And I was like, was this a vacation? Like, I came back, I was more tired than when I went. I had spent more money than I didn't have. And then I was stressed on the way in the airport. So for me, I guess that's why I started questioning this whole vacation. I guess we all have different agenda. Yeah,
Yeah.
so now, but then when I see people like you who travel a lot, and then I realized, okay, maybe there's a different way to do it. So yeah, so thanks for sharing your insights, what you're doing with us.
Yeah.
So for instance, you mentioned all different tools you're using, different apps. So like, because for me, it seems like a lot of things to do. Because remember, there's a time I used to travel within Canada because the job I had, just to keep an eye on WestJet to see if they have a deal. For me, it seemed like too much. People were telling me, oh, you need to log in on Monday or you need to log in on Tuesday evening. So for you, like, how do you get organized? Do you have like a management system, like an Excel spreadsheet, like practically, or do you just log in into each every time, or like what's the
Uh,
practical things you do to like? Because it seems like there's too much. For me, at least for me, I feel like there's too much to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a system that works for you. For me, when it comes to airfare, Flight Hub has an opportunity to notify you when the price of something goes down. Like you put in your itinerary, and when the ticket goes down, they send you an email to let you know the prices went down. I think Hopper has the same option. But what I do is I've learned that, at least in my experience traveling locally, like within Canada and the US, the flights are
Mhm.
usually on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I think Sunday mornings. So, and usually those early 6 a.m. flights, they tend to be cheaper. So I know that if I'm
Okay.
if I'm going to go somewhere that involves like if it's local within the country or across the border, I know that if I can plan to fly on a Tuesday or Wednesday or on a Sunday, then the prices might be different than if I want to go somewhere Friday, for instance, Friday after work. And then
Okay.
I start there, and then you can set up alerts so you don't have to set up. I'm big on calendar, using the calendar on my phone, setting up alerts to those websites, and then you plan from there.
Okay. So you mentioned about, let's say, early flights in the morning, they tend to be cheaper. That I noticed because every time I travel very early. I have somebody, I won't mention the name, but but the person said she'll never come to pick me at the airport because she said I look for too many cheap flights. I said it's okay. I'll take Uber. So how about the seasons, like the months,
Yes.
how does that
I
work? Like,
personally, I think to book. I have a note here. Travel out of season. That's also another way to get deals. If you want to travel, let's say in the middle of July, and you want to go, middle of July is high season, pretty much most places. You don't buy your ticket like 2 weeks before, you know, and just know that if, let's say you're going, I don't know, somewhere back home or in East Africa or whatever, Africa in middle of July or middle of August, just don't buy your ticket a couple weeks before, and just be prepared to pay a little bit more than if you were traveling in March or April or October or November. So those are all the things to look out for. Travel out of season, look up for the Groupons, the deals. It seems like a lot of things to do, but here's the thing. If you don't plan ahead, then prepare to pay more. That's really what it comes down to. And planning ahead also, it means planning smart. So you have your system, you have all the apps. For instance, I have Airbnb apps on my phone. There's all those apps I mentioned earlier, Agoda, Hopper, Flight Hub, all of them. You have them handy, and you tell yourself 3 months before or 6 months before you start. I mean, if you're booking flights, you can get away most of the time 3 months before and still get a decent deal. But some places, if it's especially a long flights, 6 months before, you might save an extra $100 or $200. So you can explore that. It really comes down to your budget and your systems that you use to make it work for you.
okay. So what would you tell somebody like who love to try and travel like you've been doing like once a year? Because most people, at least me, I was on the impression it's very expensive. I guess because my last travel 10 years ago, I guess, wanted to be like those popping champagne. So we address that depending on the purpose where you're traveling. If you want to travel on a budget, so then you engage in different activities. So what would you say to somebody who'd like to try this like lifestyle? Do you have like an advice or something specific? Maybe I didn't ask about.
Yeah. In terms of advice, definitely the first thing would be to put it in your budget. So if you plan, let's say end of the year, you want to go somewhere like in 3 to 6 months, like now would be a good time to start planning, and then figure out how much money you can afford realistically to put towards a trip. You can start with a small trip. It doesn't have to be an international trip, but if you absolutely want to do an international trip, save for that trip. But also make sure that your bills, I think most of our audience here are adults, so that you have bills wherever you live. You make sure that those bills are covered while you're away and that you've saved for your trip. I'm a believer in traveling, paying things with cash. Some people might think it's old school, but because here's the thing. If you don't have like your trip paid for, like you don't have your flight, the basic things, flight, accommodation, and some pocket money for your experiences that you're gonna have, you're gonna be stressed out on that trip. I mean, or on your flight back, you're gonna be like those people they don't look forward to coming back because they know what they're coming back to, and it's
that was my feeling 10 years ago. I was like, is this even worth it?
Yeah,
the stress alone, yeah.
Yeah, and when you really think about it, it comes down to planning ahead and being realistic. Spend the money that you have. If you know that in 6 months you're going to make a trip, put a little money away every month. Start even at the beginning of the year. And if you know that you're going to go somewhere in December or between September and December, in January, figure out how much money you need to put away each month so that you don't have to come up with a lump sum last minute or even 2 months before. Because it can be overwhelming. Already like a ticket, if it's like $1,200, $1,500, it's easy if you plan it like 10 months before. You're putting away, I don't know, 100, 120, a month. It's more bearable, if I should say. And then yeah, ultimately just planning ahead, making sure things are taken care of where you live. Like when you come back from your trip, your rent or mortgage, whatever it is that you pay, the roof over your head is taken care of. And when you're on your trip, be realistic about your spending. You know, if you want to pop champagne, put champagne on your budget. You know, don't get there and like get all emotional. I mean, I've seen some things like when I've been on my trip, especially back home. I'm not gonna name names. You know, I think people like it's they're not random folks, but you have a sense of the budget that they're operating with. But once they're there, emotions kick in. They're ordering drinks here and there, inviting people to order stuff, and the next thing they have to foot this huge bill, and then they're mad, and you're like, I mean, you offered to pop champagne for all these people, and folks back home. I mean, they won't say, oh, stop, we don't want any more shit. Like most people, if you're out there, you're from diaspora, you're going home to visit, they're not going to say no to your champagne. They're not going to say no to your...
I wouldn't say no.
I mean, they see it as a treat and it's an opportunity for them. And I don't blame them either. So make sure you have
I think in that case also like maybe it might be a little tangent. Maybe you can do another topic for that. But also I think it's the people there is also like if you give the impression that you're rich, then they don't think they're hurting you or taking advantage of you in any way, right? Because you're volunteering to do it. Okay, so now because now it looks like we talked about budget. So do you have any tools or something you can recommend? Because I know most people will struggle, especially in North America, like budgeting and savings. Like so, it looks like you really have to be on top of your dollars, right?
Yeah.
Like on a monthly basis to be able to do this kind of travel every year. Like, do you have any tip or resource or something you could just share with people? Let's say maybe somebody who would love to have this lifestyle, and maybe now they're struggling to now they understood you really need to budget, but then maybe they want to take off that maybe.
I did a course with Dave Ramsey. I occasionally teach his principle. So he has a tool, like a budgeting tool that you can use. I could probably share it, but it's basically, I also created like a Excel sheet. You can also do a Word sheet, and then he has all your budgeting items. So everything, all your bills that you pay, and you can add one for travel. And then you just track it every month. I personally, on the tool that I use, it's the Excel document that I use. I try to track my bills for the next 3 months. So I have a tab for each month, like from Monday, from January to December. And then I try to, I fill it in. So I already know like my bills, what I'm paying like for next month, and then towards the end, until the end of the year. And then you also budget for incidentals, like things that may come up that's not planned. So there's the emergency fund. So Dave Ramsey has some tools that he provides, and it's free. Actually, a lot of it is free on his website. And I can share that with you, and we can put it in the comments at some point once this recording.
People are asking, so this recording is going to be saved, and then in the comments you could put some extra links, because I feel most people, that's where we get stuck. Personally as well, that's where I got stuck. Because I remember when we met in Edmonton, and I also had this question. I was asking you like, how do you pull it off? Because for me it seemed like magic.
I should add one more thing. One thing that has helped me, I mentioned bills and stuff. I don't have like one thing that has helped me kind of travel, and it's made it a bit easier for me, is that I had prioritized getting out of debt, and so I did that. A few years after I graduated university. So that's one bill that I don't pay anymore. So that's money that I could use towards, travel. And so there's that too. In order to, you want to, yes, you budget, but also make sure you try to eliminate as much bills that hold you back. For instance, if you're subscribed to let's say Netflix, it's like what, $15 a month now. I think it went up. Well, I don't really know because I don't pay Netflix, but I use Netflix. So I have a I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't pay
No,
for
no, no,
Netflix.
no, those are the hacks you wanna people wanna know, like realistically, like
Yeah, you know, so I use my sister.
what does it take to really like to pull it off, right?
Yeah, so and I don't have like my phone plan is I buy my phones outright. And the phone I'm using is actually used. It was lightly used, and I don't have a contract, so I don't have a 2-3 contract. The last time I had a contract was about 10 years ago, actually. It ended. I had a contract when I was in university. It lasted as long as my university studies, basically. So,
Okay.
and I never got in another. So that to me means like you get an unlocked phone. Most phones are unlocked now. And then when you travel, like when I go on an extended trip, I don't have to worry about, I just put my phone on hold if it's 3 to 6 months. And then I leave. I don't have to worry about an extra payment that I have to make towards my phone because I got the
Because no,
latest.
because that $70 on the phone when you let's say if you're in Africa and then you think about it, it's a lot of money. You're like,
Yeah,
I could have extended my trip, like, or did an extra, like maybe go to have a more experience, maybe go to a park or something. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
okay. So once people get their budget in place, but also start reviewing some of the things like maybe they're spending on they don't need, and
Mhm.
also see maybe what kind of things you're able to freeze. Maybe like for you is the phone because you don't have a contract, and then you don't really have to pay when you're gone, right? And then maybe try to see what the kind of things they can freeze in terms of expenses while they're gone.
Yeah, yeah. Try to look at your bills, everything that you pay, things that you actually don't need. Things that I have Spotify. It's a shared plan, so we split it. So I don't pay the full rate. So little things like that. It adds up. $15 there, $14 there, $18. I mean, you think it's nothing, but when you sit down and do the math, you multiply all those little bills times 12. You're like, you can be doing something else. So
Yeah.
look at all those your bills, see what you can eliminate, and then that will help you move forward in your savings and
Okay.
achieve your goal sooner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For those who are joining us, yeah, this is a life lesson series. Today the guest is Natacha, and they will talk about traveling and how you can travel on a budget. She's been traveling pretty much almost every year for the last 10 years or so. Yeah, so if you have questions, you could put in the comments, put in the question box, and then we'll see what we could do. Yeah, so let's switch the topic a little bit. Another thing, I think another worry people have is security or safety if you're picking a sport. Like, do you have like a process on that, or do you have countries you say I wouldn't go? Like how like
Uh,
or was not like an issue you've had in that like.
I mean, I usually, except for like on my solo trip, I went somewhere that's known to be safe. Um, but other trips, that's where traveling in groups really helps a lot. They say there's power in numbers, but there's also safety in numbers. I mean, I
Okay.
personally wouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. I mean, as a woman, I wouldn't go there by myself. But there's places where you definitely have to look into security. That's very important, especially if you're a woman in certain countries, because you want to come back home alive and well. Um,
Yeah.
and I haven't been to a place where I haven't come across a country where like I really want to go there, but I don't want to go there because of security. There are countries that I'm like, no, that doesn't interest me. And I don't really, I don't want to push it. But most of the places I go are multicultural, and they're safe. They're safe for the most
Okay.
part. And you always have to mind your surroundings wherever you go.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a good question. That's definitely something to research.
I guess with your strategy, because your goal is to integrate it to the locals. So I guess maybe also like you don't attract too much. I guess you don't attract.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you don't attract too much attention on you. I guess if
yeah. There's that too. You don't want to stand out like that. My strategy is blend in. Blend in, move like the locals, move with the locals. If you're going somewhere and like even just one person, connect with that person for them to show you the ropes. If you don't know anybody, look at reviews, it's part of the research. And then try to make your trip as safe as possible.
Okay. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, I can use the comments or the question box. Yeah, so let me see. Yeah, so let's talk about now there's COVID, there are people working remote.
Mhm.
Personally, I think that could make it easier, maybe people who want to earn while they travel. Like, is this something you've
Yeah.
tried? Is this something you've experimented with before, like where you earn while you're traveling?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I did before is I got, some work where I was for an extended time, but definitely now it's easier if your job allows you to do, to travel remotely, to work from anywhere, and there's no restrictions, then it's even easier to move around and to travel because you're traveling and you're earning. I personally don't have that opportunity yet, but
Okay.
that's something I'm working towards because of the nature of the work that I do, and long story short, it's not an option right now, but I foresee it to be an option
Mhm.
in the future. Remote work has created some beautiful opportunities. So you don't have to take, like, if you want to go somewhere that you might need a month or visit a region, for instance. Let's say you want to visit East Africa, the whole region. You don't need to. I mean, it's not quite something you can do in 1 week, unless you really rush everything. But if you want to
Yeah.
say, like, I'm going to take a whole month and do that, but I don't want to lose my vacations, or you don't have 2 weeks vacations,
Mhm.
um, then you can work, do it little by little, and don't interrupt your payroll, for lack of a better word. So definitely explore that. You might actually be able to get to your destination even sooner if you're allowed to work from wherever you're going, and just plan your activities according to your schedules. Because the thing is, when you're traveling, let's say I go to, like, East Africa, and I look at the time zone. So right now I work daytime. If I was in East Africa working from there, I would be working evening shift basically there, which
Yeah.
liberates my whole morning and early afternoon. So you could do a lot. You could do a lot
Mhm.
during that time, and then of course you have your weekends. So that's you can get a lot done that way. Or
Okay,
somebody
that's
who does the night shifts here, that also works. When you're there, I think it will be like day shift
yeah.
if you work night shift, something like that. Anyways, so there's lots
Yeah,
of opportunities.
to do that. Okay. Yeah. So now, since COVID came, I think you had a chance to travel since COVID came. Like, like how has it changed, like the travel experience or the planning, or for you, or for you still kind of the same? Like,
The process costs a bit more because you have to do COVID tests. So I traveled January, right before last year, right before, like, lockdowns and everything, a couple months before. So, but then after that, I traveled earlier this year. So I had gone to East Africa. I went back home, and then I had also gone to Dubai. So the things that have changed is, I mean, you have to pay for a COVID test. At the time I was traveling, it was no longer covered, so you actually have to go to pay for the COVID test, which is I think is over $100. When I
okay.
went, I don't want to prove the race, but it wasn't. It was. It's not small money. So you
Yeah.
have that, and then when you get to your destination, you have to pay for another test. Like, I went to Rwanda initially. That's why I started off. I had to pay for a COVID test when I got there. Then I had to pay for a hotel to quarantine. I mean, they do have a list of hotels you can go and different rates, but it still costs you. So you do 2 tests. You pay for 2 tests a hotel. Then when I went to Dubai, same thing. I had to get tested before I left Rwanda. When I got to Dubai, I had to
Yeah.
get tested again to leave. So there's all these. You have to add all these little expenses that add
Okay.
up. You have to calculate that. But the good thing about COVID is, when I was traveling, there were deals. Like in Dubai, we stayed at an amazing hotel, and there was, like, a fairly good deal, and and we got an upgrade when we got there. So we got an upgrade, which was very nice. Um, and so you notice, like, some hotels aren't packed, so you can negotiate, and depending on where you're going, you can once you arrive, you can negotiate. And we, by the way, our upgrade was free. We didn't have to pay for it. So we got, early check-in and a nice upgrade. So the service is different. I feel like when you're going somewhere and there's not many people, you might
Yeah.
get more intent. Like the staff might give you more attention, especially if it's a popular place, because they're not seeing that many people come because of COVID.
Mhm.
So there's
Okay.
benefits. And then at some flights, I got deals because of COVID because there weren't that many people traveling. So, but the only thing with COVID is, you're some people might be concerned with risk, like risk of exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, I did get a scare, like when I came back from Dubai, we got a call saying that somebody was tested positive, but ultimately I was fine. I got tested. I was fine, and the people I traveled with were fine. But those things, some people might be a bit, they might get nervous if they get a call that's saying that you might have been exposed. It might trigger anxiety, or I mean, I've had a couple of
Yeah.
those, emails and phone calls that I'm like, okay, you have to
Yeah.
be self-aware of yourself. Don't go to places that
Mhm.
are risky. But there's some pros and cons. So there's the added cost of testing and quarantine in some cases. But then there's the cons is you may get pretty good hotel deals. So you have to decide, what price you're willing to pay.
Do I wait for everybody to get back into to get back into traveling, and then you compete for the hotel and the stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a question that came in. Someone was asking, like, why do you find a group to travel with? Like, do you travel with people you already know, or do you have like places you could go meet with other travelers and then you go together?
Yeah. As of date, I've traveled with people I know. They're friends. Like I know their temperament. I haven't gone on an international trip with someone that I didn't know before. I've done local trips with friends of friends. So I'll give you an example with people that I don't know. Like I organize. I don't know if you recall. I organize hiking on the
Mhm.
summers. So that's one of the things where that could be a day trip, or like if it's it's usually not overnight, but if it's like overnight but locally, I have this thing like second degree rule. So I'll invite people that I know, but they're welcome to invite people that they know, but they've vetted them out. you know
Okay.
I'm kind of I mean, some people, I personally like to travel with people that I already know, and the people that I know are welcome to invite the people that they know. So that's as unpredictable that I've been able to make it. Because here's the thing: not all my friends are travel buddies, and if they're here or whatever, they know, like, which if you do you audit all your relationships, all your friendships, you
Mhm.
can you can think, even right now, you can think right out of the top of your head, you can probably tell me at least one friend that that you wouldn't travel with them. you know
Yeah.
because there's a temperament. You have to have like something in common. You don't want to go. I'm the kind of person, like, I like to experience the town. Like, I want to go to museums, I want to do activities. You don't want to go with somebody who just wants to, like, not do nothing, just lay
Just,
there.
uh, just chill, yeah. Because I remember there's a road trip we did. We're very new in Canada. I think it was in 2003. We did a road trip. Yeah, I've done a few road trips across Canada and the US. Like definitely, like the mix of people, like really, it can really spoil the. There's one trip we did. The guy didn't want us to rent a car. We're still students. He said, "Hey, I have a car. We're gonna use my car." So we
Okay.
thought it was a good idea. So we saved some money. But the
Yeah.
problem is he didn't want to let anybody else drive his car. So which means also when we go to the state destination, let's say we want to go out and clubbing, but he says I want to go sleep. And then what do you do, right? So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So there are a few things you learn, and also like for me at least personally, one thing I've learned is maybe I was going to say too much about my personal life, but no, I said one of the things I believe in now, if you really want to know people, take them on a really long road trip.
Yeah.
Like when you're going,
Mhm.
everybody's nice and smiling and sharing, or do you have a bottle of water, right? Or grab me this, right? But on the way back, oh, all the civility goes away. People are tired, people are grumpy. For instance,
Yeah.
there's because we've done so many travel by road trips. For instance, there's a simple rule. Let's say if somebody's driving, and then there's the co-pilot, right? So they're the ones who decide what music they need to play because they're the ones who need to stay focused,
Yeah.
right? Not the people at the back. And also, let's say if you have a minivan, those who are driving, they're supposed to get the back seat where they can have their legs stretched so they can get like a full rest. But
Yeah.
then you have people they in that sport, they don't want to drive, but yet they don't want to give that nice play. Like, so definitely like for me, for what I could say from my best experience, if you pick people you already know you have something similar in terms of interest, that could create like a good because at that time we used to organize things but usually it was like the more people can get less in the minivan, the more money we can save type of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But but those like short trips for the weekend wasn't so bad. But
Yeah.
if I were to do it again now, if something's gonna be long, I'll look more like what kind of interest do you have? Are you more like an outdoor person or an indoor person, right?
Yeah. For sure. There you go. One thing I should actually explain. I'm not saying that I look for people who want to do everything I want to do, but if they have a similar interest, but if they just want to like, do one thing that I want to do and the rest they want to chill, that's okay too, as long as you know that in advance.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is go on a trip with someone and they just get annoyed by everything, then it kills the mood, right? It just,
Yeah.
that 2 day trip trend, it feels like 21 days. So yeah, I definitely, so far I've traveled with people that I know, like friends who it just happened that we wanted to do the same thing. But also in terms of activities like local trips, local activities, there's Meetup. Like there's a group called Meetup. It's like a networking thing. That's
Okay.
where I started discovering for local activities like hiking. That's the group. One of the Meetup groups is where I learned about that hike that we used to do in Gatineau at
Okay.
the cave. Like I did that with, I knew nobody on that trip, but that was a day trip, right?
Okay.
And so that's one way you can do like local activities. But international trips, I highly recommend you go with people you've known, or you at least you've met them. Well, these days there's a lot of virtual meetings, but you have a better sense because you don't want to be stuck somewhere remote, far away with somebody
Yeah.
that's just not
Yeah.
like.
I guess each person can they have I guess they'll know who they are in terms of risks they want to
Yeah,
take. But it makes sense if it's like a day trip, like locally, like you,
yeah,
because you can always get yourself home. Even like you're not gonna be stranded in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, exactly.
So we're almost getting at the end. We said it's gonna be 1 hour. I just have like two quick questions. You can answer them or you can skip them. It's up to you.
Yeah,
What is like your best memory or some of your top best memories for the trips you've done?
the trips I've done. Um, there's quite a few. Well, in my childhood, there's National Kruger's Park. I really enjoyed that, and in Turks and Caicos, I went to Turks and Caicos, just a beautiful island. That was just breathtaking. I went to Dubai this year. That was amazing. Just like it's hard to just pick. Okay, so that
Okay.
would be my.
It's like someone asking you what's your favorite child?
Yeah, so there's that. So there's South Africa, Turks and Caicos, and then of course Rwanda. I got to visit an island called like Kibuye. It's just, that's another beautiful. I tend to like waterfront areas. Like it's anything by the
Okay.
lake. It's really nice. Or ocean access. Yeah, places that are calm and where you can think, packed with nature. Um, and then I went to Akagera Park as well this year, which is in Rwanda. It's a natural reserve, just another beautiful place to visit if you like nature, being
Okay.
out in the wild. So those are I think I mentioned 4 places already.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions. So you mentioned you did a workshop about is that like a personal finance?
yeah. It's a financial literacy class. I did.
Okay.
I've taught I've taught already virtually. So it's mostly I used to do it within 12 weeks, but I'm going to make it like package it so that it's you can access it sooner. You could do it within 3-4
Okay.
weeks. But
Yeah. So
Mhm.
okay. No. So yeah. So I think that's something I think people could definitely benefit from because it looks like you gotta have your finance in check. At least if you don't have like a more trips and also stress free. Yeah. So if you have one coming up soon, you could if you know a date, you could let us know today.
Yeah.
Or if not, you could let me know, and then you can promote it. And I'm sure that people can benefit from that one.
Yes, I'll send you the dates. I'm trying to do one before the end of the year because in the new year a lot of people have like New Year's resolution, but it's a good time to clean up your finance. There's still a lot of time left for this year. It's a good time to
I need it too.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I'll definitely share. Um, I'll also send you the stuff for the tools that you can access through Dave Ramsey, which I also reference in my course. Try to
okay.
use as much as the free resources as possible, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. Perfect. So, is there anything that you could never do on a trip?
Never do on a trip. Uh, on a trip. Hmm. I mean, there has to be something. Uh, never do on a trip. I'm trying to think something appropriate. There's lots of things that.
You don't have to answer it.
Well, one thing I wouldn't marry a stranger on a trip. I wouldn't do that. Um,
So you said you
uh,
wouldn't marry?
I wouldn't marry a stranger on a trip. You know how some people go
Oh, to go
go on a
and
trip,
then
they go on a trip single and they come back married. It's not somebody they
oh, people, maybe I need
dra-
that trip.
and it's not somebody that they know. It's just like, oh, I met someone and our hearts clicked. No, I wouldn't do that. Um, what
Yeah.
else I would do on a trip? Anything illegal, really. I wouldn't do.
So
Um,
so no Vegas trip for you.
I mean, you can go to and keep it PG.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there's Deanne who says she'd like to know more about your program.
Yeah.
So I'll put you guys in contact after the live. Yeah. So I don't know if you have the last thing you'd like to say to the audience, and then we said 1 hour, so it's already 1 hour. So
Already 1 hour.
yeah.
The last thing I want to say is traveling doesn't have to be expensive. As I alluded earlier, it's a matter of planning, and there's also has to be that willingness to want to see it through. Like everything else, if you prioritize it and you plan, yes, there's surprises that might come up, but if you make it a priority, you can make it happen. And you can if you're not following me already, I know this is like a plug.
Oh, no, go
Shameless
ahead.
plug.
Like, no,
Follow me
don't
and then
feel bad. I don't know why people feel bad promoting themselves. You should talk to me. Maybe I should do like a marketing workshop. Like,
yeah, follow me and then I'll keep you can stay posted about my workshop as well, and I'll share it with Olivier as well, and you can share it with your
yeah,
followers in the future. Most likely it's going to start like in the middle of October, and it will be virtual so anybody can access it.
oh, okay.
I'll try to make it as it's usually cost effective. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll keep you posted on that, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for your time. And for you and for the future guests and anybody who's listening, for me, I believe in win-win deals. So if you somebody took time to come and share the knowledge, share the expertise, hey, if you've got something that's relevant to the topic, like that's also the goal. Like also just to promote people because we all win, right? So
Yeah.
personally, I don't like when people say shameless plug. Like I'm always like, don't like just
Right.
just putting in the plug and because at the end of the day, right? People who take time to listen to you for an hour or 2 hours is because they're really interested in what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one marketing tip. I'll give that one for you for free.
Thank you. Thank you.
For
No,
sharing all this wonderful knowledge.
all right. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. And then, hey, guys, if you want part two of traveling, let me know, and then you can book her. And then if you want her to come back and maybe do a live about personal finance, it's also something we can organize. So this is a life lesson series I'll be organizing when I have time. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you got a skill, something you're passionate about, or something you're experienced in, or something you think that could benefit the community, let me know, and I'll put you on the calendar, and then we can share with the rest of the community. Thank you very much for tuning in, and then we'll connect over messaging.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for having me.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
Bye.
Bye.